All right, all right. I'm back. I'm back tonight. This is practically what I'm doing tonight. So I'm here and I'm looking forward to basically this is my first time ever streaming through Zoom. This is all brand new to me. What I'm learning, technology is so important to know. So what I spoke about last week was what I spoke about last week was I spoke about on one of my series, I talked about credit and why it's important to understand how credit works. And the reason why I talked about that so much, understanding how credit works, what I was trying to get at basically was and credit one part series, which is part of the money rehab series. Now, what is money rehab? Money rehab is to how credit works. So money, and the reason why I talk about, so the reason why I talk about the, part of my series is called the Money Rehab series. So what that's about is basically I'm diving into the psychological part. So I'm not a psychologist, but when you understand how psychology works, one of the fundamentals is being able to get to the core root of the problem. Like there's a tree, but the tree has to have a seed. The seed is the beginning of the tree. And out that seed, you shall now grow a tree that can also bear fruit. So when I spoke about in the first series, which is now running in replay, credit education part one, I talked about there's two components of your credit report, of your credit profile, your credit score and credit history. And when you get your first job using your social security number, you have activated your credit profile. Your credit profile is activated through your social security number when you get your first job or get your first credit card or bank account. That's when your credit profile is what? Activated. So, and part one of the series, which is the money rehab series, that series came the credit education part one. I also talked about what makes up the FICO score. So there's the FICO score, and then there's the credit history. And I mentioned the FICO score breaks down to the 35, 30, 15, 10, and 10, 15, 10, and 10, which is 35% represent payment history. 30%, which is called utilization, represent two things: debt to available credit and your utilization of how you use your credit. 15% represent length of credit history. So what does that mean? Let's say, for example, you had a credit card for over 10 years. So you have 10 years of history. The other 10% represent new credit. New credit. And the last 10% represent, it breaks down to revolving credit, which are your credit cards, mixed credits, which are mixed credit breaks down to you revolving credit, which are your credit cards. The other part is installment credit, which are mortgage, car payments, mortgage, student loans, term loans, equipment financing. The other part of this, of the mixed credit, is charge cards. What is charge cards? American Express. What is a charge card? When you charge everything, you must pay in full what you charge for that month. So if you have an American Express, which American Express also give out credit cards, they also have charge cards. A credit card comes with a what? A credit card limit. A charge card, you're able to charge you're able to charge, which can exceed a credit limit, but however, if you make a specific purchase that's a large amount, American Express will shut down your charge card. So if you have a charge card and you go for the month of November and you use your charge card for the total purchases of, let's say, $500 to $1,000. You charge that month between $500 to $1,000. When you get your American Express bill, which is normally the 9th of every month, which they call the closing date. So there's a closing date from October 9th to November 9th. That's a 30-day cycle. So now you have to pay it before the closing date. So you have to pay whatever you charge, you have to pay it back in full. If you carry a balance forward to the month from November 9th to December 9th, you're going to be charged with finance charge and interest because you didn't pay it off in full. And last but not least of the mixed credits are service credits. Service credit is from your utility company as your light bill. You have to have light, electricity, and gas, right? So they'll be your utility companies. Then if you have a cell phone bill, a monthly cell phone bill from T-Mobile, Verizon, or AT&T, right? Then you have your cable bill. For those that's in New York, it's Cablevision. Well, here in Pennsylvania, we have Xfinity, which is also Comcast. Many of you know about Verizon Fios. So whoever's your cable provider, they're providing what they call a service credit, which means they provide the service, and in 30 days, you're going to get a bill from the electric company, the gas company, the water company, the cell phone bill. A lot of you have monthly subscriptions with Netflix or Hulu or YouTube. A lot of streaming services. A lot of you have memberships to the gym, where the gym extend credit by what? Allowing you to come to the gym, and within 30 days, they are going to deduct the funds from either your checking account, debit card, or credit card. So I talked about that as far as the credit education, and part of the credit history is your personal information, which is your name, your address, your social security number, plus where you live and the jobs that you've had. So that's part of your personal information. And as I mentioned in the last series, I talked about Chapter 7, still your credit report for 10 years. Bankruptcy, Chapter 7, still your credit report for 10 years. Bankruptcy, Chapter 13, still your credit report for 7 years. And foreclosure, stay on your credit report for 7 years. Hard inquiry, what is a hard inquiry? It represents how many times have you applied for credit, whether you've been approved or turned down. There's something called a hard pull, which is still your credit report for what? 2 years. A soft pull is when you're pre-approved or when you pull your own credit report. And I mentioned about the 3 major credit bureaus: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And then under them, you have Dun & Bradstreet, you have LexisNexis, you have Innovis, you have Credit Safe, and there's many other credit reporting agencies. There's one for employment, there's one for utility, there's one for medical, there's one for insurance. So there's many reporting agencies who are submitting this information to out of the 3 major credit bureaus. And then once this information is given to them, it creates what they call a credit profile. And that's why it's important that you can pull your credit report from annualcreditreport.com annually. And everyone should be pulling their reports from the 3 major credit bureaus, making sure that the information is correct on your credit report. Down from your name, for example, I'm Marvin Smith Jr., and there's a Marvin Smith Sr. So let's say, for example, for you fathers out there, where there's a 2-parent home where the father and one of his sons share the same name. However, the son who still lives at home with his parents goes out and get a job or try to go out and get car insurance. He don't use either Junior or, let's say, for example, John Smith the first, John Smith the second, John Smith Sr., John Smith Jr. Even though both Johns live in the house, if the son doesn't use Junior or second, what's going to happen? That's going to be a conflict, because now when they run for auto insurance, they're going to see there's two Johns in the house. So that's why it's important that the son, if he's Junior or the second, it's important when he fills out his application for anything, credit, if you're going to get a car, if you're going to get a house, a credit card, or a bank account, you want to use John Smith II or John Smith Jr. That is a separation from John Smith I or John Smith Sr. So tonight I want to talk about credit education part 2. And the reason why I want to talk about credit education part 2 is that it's very vital that you get the knowledge. So many people out here don't have they either don't have the information or they don't have the knowledge. So that's why the Lord said, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. What are they lacking? They're lacking knowledge. But then the second part said, because they reject knowledge. And I have a coin phrase that I always use. I say that life is a classroom and we all must pay tuition. That means that what? Whatever you want in life, you're going to have to pay for it, with money or no money. And it's going to be at the cost of getting experience. So that's why you must invest into your personal development. And as I talked about it, many people, when they leave high school or college, they don't pick up a book or read anymore. So their comprehension level is low, because if you stop doing something, you're going to struggle with it or you're not going to be good at it no more. You're either going to use it or lose it. So it's very important that you educate yourself, because we live in a world that's full of information. Now, what's different about today and 30, 40 years ago? There wasn't social media. We didn't have Google. We didn't have search engines as Google or Yahoo or Bing or Yelp. We did it the old-fashioned way, through the yellow pages, the white pages. So you had to read. There wasn't no GPS. There wasn't no Waze or Google Maps or any other navigations that help you get to where you're going. You did it the old-fashioned way. You either got lost and learned, or you had to read a physical map to get to your destination. Or you would ask somebody, for example, I'm looking for this certain place. They would give you direction. Nowadays, you don't have to do that, because why? The navigation comes on your phone, right? You either can buy a GPS, buy a big GPS, put it on top, not your dashboard, but on top of the dashboard, on top of the car. Or what everybody's doing is we're using our cell phone. I have an Android phone, so I have Google Maps, which automatically comes on my cell phone, because Google makes Android. Android is Google. And for those who have Apple, they have what? The navigation app that comes on their phone. And I also have Waze, which is owned by Google. So that's another navigation tool that I can use to get to where I'm going around the city and around the United States. So we didn't have those things back then. So people had to rely on what? They had to do the manual way. There was no Google, but we had encyclopedias and dictionaries to look up things. Now we have Google. That's great, because now the information is instant. So you don't have to have an encyclopedia or encyclopedia catalog. You can now have it on an app, a encyclopedia app and a dictionary app, which I would suggest each and every one of you to have on your phone because you need to know what words means. So what I want to talk about tonight is I spoke about on the first series about personal credit, and I want to talk about behavior. Many people in America today are struggling. Why? Because of lack of knowledge. Why? Because many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Many Americans, based on their education, their class, and some will say race. But I'm going to eliminate race for a minute. And why I want to eliminate that for a second, even though a lot of that does exist. However, I believe in the mind of prosperity. I believe that you have to put yourself in a position. Now, everybody is different. Everybody's situation and conditions are different. That doesn't mean you can't put forth any effort. That's why I say faith without works is dead. You can believe, but if there's no works behind it, then what? There's no outcome. So as I spoke in the last live, and I'm talking about tonight, what I want to get into is how you can educate yourself. And I want to suggest a few books. One of the first book that I read, and I read a lot of books. One of the books that I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It's a great read. Now, if you have diabetes like myself, sometimes it affects your vision, so you need reading glasses. But you can get Rich Dad Poor Dad on a paperback book. You can buy new or used off of Amazon. That's why I go back to always saying, life is a classroom. We all must pay tuition. It's all part of personal development. Then, once you read that book, these are financial books, giving you financial education. And as I mentioned before, many of us that grew up in our household, our parents never taught us, or we never talked about at the dinner table or any downtime when we spent time together. We never was taught about, I knew I wasn't. As I mentioned, originally born in Brooklyn, New York. I come from Albany Projects, which is in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And my mother was on welfare. And as I was speaking to one of my clients that came to my office, I remember as a young boy, my mother had to go to face-to-face. What was face-to-face? You had to go down to face-to-face social welfare office to meet with them face-to-face to keep your benefits, right? So as a young boy, I would have to go with my mother and she would have to take me out of school because it was an all-day process. You go out there sometimes 8:30 in the morning, you might not get out till like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Yes, it was like that. And I saw that. And we would go down to 500 DeKalb Avenue. And I remember we used to take the 47 bus and we'd travel to the 38 bus and go down to the welfare office right there on 500 DeKalb Avenue, right across the street from Lafayette Garden Projects. And I remember it's a big brown building, and it's still there. It's still there to this day. So as a young man, my mother was on welfare. And she used to get her check on 11th and 26th. I remember that. She got cash and she got food stamps. But we didn't have a lot. But we had something that allowed us to survive. And I always talk about how the projects saved our lives because my mother wasn't the most educated person. That did not diminish or take away from her value as a woman and the great mom that she was. So my mother's deceased. She died in 2009. So as a young man who grew up in the system, right? Because I was on her budget, so I was on welfare with her because I was her dependent. So as a young man growing up in the system, I'm thankful because why do I say that? Because we had a roof over our head. and we had food in our stomach. Now, were we under the best conditions? No. But my mother made a way. So I respect that. And that's put that survival instinct in me. But as a grown man that I am today, I strive for prosperity and I strive for success. And that's why it's important to me that when people come to my office, I'm an educator. So I'm the founder of Smith Bookkeeping Financial Services, LLC. And you can go to my website, www.sbfsllc.com. Again, www.sbfsllc.com. I'm an accountant, and I'm also a tax accountant. I prepare tax returns for individuals and business. And my email address is info@sbfsllc.com. So now I'm going to go more further into the subject. So what I want to talk about tonight was, and I'm going to break down the banks and the credit unions and how they're broken down in tiers. And I'm going to reiterate on that again. So tier one are the national banks. These banks are found mostly throughout every state and every city across America. They're Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank. These are the big boys. Why? Because you can find so many Chase banks throughout your cities and your states. There's so much access to Chase, especially in New York. If you know about New York, there's so many Chase banks. Now, tier two is the regional banks, such as Key Bank, M&T Bank, Truist Bank, PNC Bank, TD Bank, George Carver Bank on Atlantic Avenue, right down there off the 203 train near the Barclay. Even a lot of your black-owned banks, they're regional banks, right? Then we have Truist Bank. Then we have Citizen Bank. These are regional banks where you don't find that many of them throughout your city, or they're not in many states. So these are called regional banks. These are regional bank, which was tier two. Tier three is the credit unions. And all credit unions are not the same. You have MCU Credit Union. You have Navy Federal Credit Union. You have the Teachers Credit Unions. You have the Firemen and Policemen Credit Union. You have here in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Federal Credit Union. So the credit unions are community-based. And the way you join them, for Navy Federal, you have to have been in the military. In order to join the Teachers Credit Union, you have to be a teacher, or if you're a retired teacher, you're part of the Teachers Credit Union. The Police and Firemen Credit Union, you have that. You have to have a relative that's on the police force to join the Police and Firemen Credit Union. You have U.S. Alliance Credit Union. You have TrueMark Federal Credit Union. So all credit unions are not the same. You either put in an application to join them, or have a family member that's part of the credit union. Or if you make a donation to one of the charities that the credit union is affiliated with, that's another way you could get into that credit union. But for Navy Federal or any military credit unions, you have to have either been in the military or have a relative that been in the military in order for you to be a member of those credit unions. And then last but not least, tier four is the subprime. Subprime is for all people that have what? Bad credit. Now what they have, what they call the subprime mortgage. When in 2008, we had a mortgage crisis and it collapsed. And many people that had bad credit had subprime mortgage. So there was a total collapse. But thank God we came out of that recession. So I mentioned that to say that there's a strategy and there's a plan. Now, a lot of you are going to go on YouTube. There are a lot of people that are running scams. And the first thing they'll say, well, oh, I do credit repair. And they're teaching that a lot of stuff they're teaching is criminal behavior. So I'll get into that later, why it's important that you understand and have the knowledge, and why it's important that you get the knowledge, and why it's important that you read. And a lot of you should be reading. A lot of you should be putting yourself in a position to get education, which is very important. Whether you're in school or not in school, you should be constantly educating yourself so that you could. I always say this: our parents are our first teachers. And as I mentioned, many of us was not taught in the home about. My mother didn't have a bank account, so she never wrote a check. And back then, during that time, anybody from the urban or the hood or the ghetto, we call it, or the inner city, a lot of us had check cash in place. So the check cash in place would be a place where you go. Let's say if you work and you didn't have a bank account, now you go put a card on file. Now here go to downfall to a little bit. You work at a job and they take out taxes and deductions. So now you get what they call net earnings or take-home pay. Now your job give you a check because you don't have a bank account to receive direct deposit, or that was back 30 or 40 years ago, right? We still have checking cash in places, but not that much. So I'm taking you back 30, 40 years ago how it was. If you didn't have a bank account, you couldn't get direct deposit in time, or you might get a debit card where you get the routing number and account number. You're able to now receive your check on a debit card that you can buy from either, let's say, Walmart or 7-Eleven or order offline. But if you didn't have neither that, you would go to the local check cashing place or the check cashing place in that area, and you put a card on file. When you go back in there again, they know that you've been there more than one time. So once you get your check from your job and all your deductions taken out, now you go to check cashing place. Check cashing place will charge you a fee for cashing your check, right? Then at the check cashing place, you get what they call money order. So if you didn't have a checking account, you would get a money order, and that'd be another way you pay your bills. And before there was Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, PayPal, we had Western Union and MoneyGram, which is still around today. So that was another way we would move money from one state to another state, whether it was domestic here in the United States or even to the Caribbean or Puerto Rico. But before there was Cash App, Zelle, Venmo, Square, PayPal, which we use today, there was MoneyGram and Western Union. And Western Union is still around to this day, along with MoneyGram. If you go to Rite Aid or go to a drugstore, you might see MoneyGram in it. Or there's also a way that you could pick up money. If someone uses Western Union, they just give you the confirmation number, and then you could go into one of these places, as I mentioned, where they accept Western Union and MoneyGram, and that's how you get the money. But nowadays, everybody's moving money through Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, or Zelle, right? Because the world has changed. Because we have technology. So the downside to that is it creates a lot of identity theft. So I talked about one, having a subscription to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Why? So that you can educate and monitor your credit, right? Second thing I told you to do is put a freeze or lock your credit. How do you lock your credit? You can either call up Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, and all the credit reporting agencies. You can lock your credit. By locking your credit, you prevent identity theft. By locking your credit, you prevent someone from opening up any checking accounts or credit cards or taking out any loans in your name. Why? Because everybody is going to pull your credit to determine if you're credit worthy. So now if you lock your credit with the 3 major credit bureaus, you also can lock it with LexisNexis. You can lock it with Innovis. So once you lock your credit, they'll send you a letter in the mail, like TransUnion. They'll send you a letter in the mail with your 6-digit PIN that you created. And you have to use that PIN to lock it and unlock it. Now, when you go to get a car loan or buy a house, the mortgage company, which is the bank, the banks, or any financing institution or the credit union, they're going to pull your credit. But before they pull it, you're going to tell them, for strategy purpose, well, I lock my credit. That also, as I mentioned, doesn't allow anyone to take out any new credit that prevents identity theft. That prevents someone from opening up any accounts in your name. Why? They go anywhere, and 90%, 99%, everybody's going to pull your credit. And if your credit is locked, no one can have access to it. You have to give permission to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You have to call them up or through chat, give them that 6-digit PIN. Now with Experian, you could go online, lock it, and unlock it, right? So when you unlock it, it's going to unlock it for a certain period. It can lock it for 24 hours, which is great. Then automatically it'll go back and lock itself when you want to check on it. The other part you should have is not only lock your credit, not only have a subscription, but you should have identity theft protection from LifeLock, from Norton's. And when you subscribe to Experian, they have a part called protection, and there you can get identity theft protection. Where it monitors your social security number. It monitors you give up all your bank information. It will monitor your accounts, your credit card accounts, your medical information. Yes, your medical information. Because somebody can use your name and address and go to what they call a community hospital. A community hospital, you don't have to have ID. They cannot refuse you in a community hospital. But a private hospital have different rules. So let's say where I lived at in Albany Projects, we had a hospital called St. John's Hospital, which was right there on Albany and Atlantic. Let's say I want to go to the emergency room. I don't have to use my real name. I can use someone else's name, address, where they live at, and guess who get the bill? They get the bill, but they cannot refuse the treatment. Right? So once you get identity theft protection, your name, my name is Common, Marvin Smith. My social security number, they're monitoring that. They monitor my social media, where I go at, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, right? Because your identity, a lot of you don't know this, a lot of you like to upload pictures all across the internet. So your identity can be compromised. I'll say it once again. Everyone have no problem with uploading all their pictures on Facebook, right? That's how your identity get compromised. That's also part of identity theft. A lot of you don't think about that, right? Let's say you meet a young woman or a man or whoever you involve with, and you are sending that person pictures. However, there are people who I call a genius out there. Your phone get hacked. Now all your photos are on your phone. Someone hacked your phone, take your identity. There was an episode on Dr. Phil, and it was called catfishing. Now there's several components of catfishing. Catfish On one part is when you meet somebody in another country, right? And these people were elderly people who were lonely. So they were seeking love. So what happened was they were, after a while, a con artist were con them, taking advantage of them because they were seeking love, right? So they would con them so much that many of these people would go into their 401k and their retirement plan, and they would wire the monies over. So one of the countries is Africa, Nigeria, right? So they will wire the money over. They never meet these people, but they're in love with them. They're in love with the promise of one day they're going to get together, because these are what con artists. So that's called catfishing. Another part of catfishing is on that same one of his episodes, there was a guy who thought he was talking to this woman, not knowing that he was being catfished. This woman took someone else's identity, and she was an actress. So when Dr. Phil brought her out, the man go, "Oh, that's the lady." And then come to find out, her identity was being compromised. He thought he was talking to her, but he wasn't talking to her. It was somebody else. And a lot of times they're on a computer, they know what to say to you. They'll ask certain questions. It's how you answer it. And then in the long run, they're going to ask you for money, or they're going to use your identity. So that's what identity theft does. And if my credit cards and debit cards are stolen, I have a $1 million no fault, which means they will pay me back for any expenses that incur at the fault of someone stealing my identity. So in the world that we live in the cyber world. And now you don't think that way. So the reason why I say credit is important is because, again, you have to get the education. Those that have low credit score are considered high risk, which means you're unlikely or will not be able to pay back the loan. Again, if your credit score between 300 is the lowest, up to, let's say, 650, right? So 300 to 500, that's considered bad credit. And I'm gonna say, I'm coming on top of my head, from 500 to like about 650, that's considered fair credit. And 650 and up, that's good credit. Then you get to 700, that's excellent credit. From 700 up to like 800, and let's say 8 to 850, that's exceptional credit. So if your credit score is low, you are considered higher risk. That means you are more likely to not pay back the loan or the debt. You will go into debt, so you will not be able to pay back the loan. You will default on the loan. You will default on your credit card. You will default on your mortgage and your car payment. The higher your credit score is, you are considered a low risk. That means you are able to pay back what you borrow. Now, good credit and bad credit is a mindset. Good credit and bad credit is a behavior. And good credit and bad credit is good credit is having the knowledge. Bad credit is a lack of knowledge, which leads to bad decisions. So you have to put the work in. You didn't ruin your credit. You did not create bad credit overnight. It took time. So it's going to take time to now reverse the behavior, get the knowledge, and put yourself in a position of good credit. If anyone tell you that they can wipe off, for example, charge-offs, bankruptcies, late charges, don't believe them. And if you hear that information, call up Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, and ask them a question. Is this true? Right? Because there's a lot of con artists out there who will tell you they can do this and do that. And We're living in the world, and I heard a guy say the best. He said the three things that they will sell you. They will sell you health, wealth, and love. Those are the three things that people get conned under. And one of the main things people get conned under, Ponzi schemes. I'm gonna give you one of them. A lot of people get conned when they go into real estate investing. That's one of the biggest and the easiest way to con a person on the real estate investing. You don't know no better. You put your trust in this person. You don't ask questions. You don't have the knowledge. A lot of you look at these people as, especially if they're celebrities. So you have to get the knowledge. That's very important. So when you have this knowledge, you understand that what? If you have good credit, you're gonna pay a low interest. But a lot of Americans today are struggling from paycheck to paycheck. A lot of Americans are in credit card debt, on student loan debt, because they went to college for either 2 years, 4 years, or went to undergraduate school. They come out, and for some who went to college on scholarships, like the young man that I talked to on mentoring, he has his undergraduate degree, so he came out debt-free, which means he had got scholarships that paid for everything, right? So if you have children out there and you plan on sending them to college, you need to, one, I would say this, speak to your guidance counselor, one, focus on having good grades, which they look at from, some go back to high school, some go back to public school. So you want to have good grades. That's going to put you in a position to get scholarships. And you want to start while they're in junior high school and in high school and come up with a strategic plan of understanding what school they want to go to, what they want to study, and how can they go to college and get scholarships and have these scholarships pay for their education and come out debt-free. That should be the very thing that each and every one of you should focus on when you want to send your child to college. You need to come up with a strategic plan of understanding what your child want to major in, how many years they want to go to college. Do they want to go to a community college? Do they want to go to a 4-year college? Do they want to go to a private college or online college? So you want to be able to check. You want to do your due diligence to do the homework. How can you send your child to college without you killing yourself working 2 or 3 jobs to put them through college? There's scholarships out there. There are programs out there that can assist them with their loans where they don't have to pay back. There are grants they don't have to pay back. There are scholarships they don't have to pay back. And these grants and scholarships will assist them when they come out of college debt-free. So their start in life is not like many other people. Many people have gone to college and they're in a lot of debt. Then on top of that, they don't get the job that they study for in school. That's another thing, right? So that's why it's important to get the knowledge. I say to each and every one of you out there, don't take the path of least resistance. Don't take any shortcuts. There are a lot of people that's going to come to you and promise you a lot of things. And there are a lot of scam artists on YouTube. There are a lot of scam artists on YouTube. And they're posing as real estate gurus. When you hear someone say they're an expert, no one is an expert. There's no one that's an expert because there's no one person that knows everything. If someone uses the word expert or they're a guru, or they're a specialist, or they're no disrespect to life coach, but they're a life coach, a dating coach, you need to check this person out. Don't take their word for everything. Do what we call a fact check. When they say something, you go do your research. That's important. There are so many people, even elderly people, who are being scammed out their retirement because they're putting their faith and hope in the people that look like us. Talk about doing it for the culture or the man that's holding you down. A scam artist could come in many different ways. That's why the Lord said, many are called, few are chosen. Many will call themselves real estate experts, real estate gurus, life coaches. They will come with these self-appointed titles, and you lacking the knowledge. It said that the blind lead the blind, so they not fall into a trap. Yes. What is that trap? They're going to trap you with the words. They're going to be smooth talkers. They might say something like this. The way to wealth is invested into real estate. Fire your boss. Go into business for yourself. You can never get rich by saving or spending. These are catchphrases, or the 40-40-40. You work 40 years, put in 40 hours to draw 40%. Ask them a question. Does that make sense to you? Well, those are catchphrases. And a lot of our people use sympathy to deceive you. But I tell you those stories about, oh yeah, when I was coming along, we ate sugar sandwiches and we did this and that. They're doing that to appeal to your emotions, right? So what I'm saying to you, that what you got to get the knowledge. Do not be the sheep that offer yourself up for slaughter. The sheep offering yourself up to the slaughter. Why? Because the sheep is a gullible animal. And that's why the Lord required to bring the flock, the sheep of the flock, to be sacrificed. Because the sheep is a gullible animal. So the Lord compared us, the people, to the liking of a sheep. Many of our people are like the sheep that offer themselves up to the slaughter because they're lacking the knowledge. They're lacking the education. So now they can be tricked or deceived or lied to on many things. And they're going to go it because just because the person look like you, that doesn't mean that person has your best interest. You got to learn to check that person out. So a lot of times they'll come, well, you have to do it for the culture. Or a lot of times they'll stand next to a celebrity. Because you looking at that celebrity, you don't realize that what? You don't know what it took for them to get to where they at. It takes a lot of work. So a lot of you will take the path of least resistance. That doesn't require you to put a whole lot of work in. And in the long run, that's going to catch up to you. You understand? So what I'm saying tonight is that one thing that I realized is that along my path, along my journey, did I make mistakes? Yes, I did. I made a lot of mistakes. Did I lose money? Yes, I did. Did I make money? Am I making money? Yes, I am. You're gonna fail, but it's how you get back up. And the most important thing is you have to have the mindset of a winner, right? I hear that term, fake it till you make it. You gotta be careful with those type of words. Why would I want to fake it in order to make it? What that really means is it goes back to the old metaphor in the Bible. Wise as the serpent, harmless as the dove. If you watch how the serpent move, and when it says harmless, means how you blend in. So no one knows what your true intentions are. Because you're not telling anyone what your true intentions are. So that's why it's important that you get the knowledge, get the information. And that's why I mentioned it like that, in that manner, that you get the knowledge and information. So part of the next series I want to talk about is business credit. I want to go into what is business credit. It's to say they like your personal credit. For those who have a business, it's very important that you understand how to build your business profile It took me years to learn this, to build a profile. The name, the right type of entity, LLC, which stands for Limited Liability Company, which gives me asset protection. It took me a long time to get to where I was. And I'm thankful for it because this is my journey. And when you go to my website, on my homepage, you read my reviews. So I'm going to talk about business credit. I want to talk about the next topic. I'm going to talk about the Duns and Bradstreet. What is the Duns and Bradstreet? It's a 9-digit number that you get from Duns and Bradstreet, which opens up what they call a credit profile with Duns and Bradstreet. I'll be talking about vendor net 30 accounts. Vendors represent suppliers or those who you do business with. So I'm going to give you one. Let's say Staples. Staples is a vendor where you go buy office supplies, office furniture, software, laptops, computers, printers, and you can buy other things out of there. Cleaning supplies. There's a different variety. A lot of you know WB Mason. They're like Staples. They do office supplies, computers, desks, office equipment. So when we talk about vendor net 30 terms, and what does that mean? I also talk about how you must have a professional email, a professional address, a website. Your website is your resume. Again, your website is your resume. Your website is where you're marketing your services at, right? You want to have a right. I'll talk about having a business phone number. Why that's important. I also talk about lines of credit, business credit cards, merchant accounts. When I say merchant accounts, I'm not talking about Cash App, PayPal, Zelle, or Venmo. I'm talking about actually having either a credit card machine where you can swipe someone's credit card or debit card, or they want to pay by Apple or Google Pay. That's a physical terminal, and they have an online terminal, but you have a merchant account. You have to actually apply with it through your bank or your credit union to get approval for it. So I'll talk about that. And we'll talk about how to set your business up. Now, as I mentioned, there are a lot of scam artists on YouTube talking about they're going to tell you that they do credit repair, and they're going to teach you some methods. Some are good and some are bad. But you won't know that until you get the knowledge and information to discern what's right or wrong. Okay? And there's so many on YouTube posing as real estate investors. They'll say to you, well, you can liquidate your credit cards by sending yourself an invoice. Well, if I send myself an invoice and pay a credit card and liquidate and get the cash, then I have to pay two things. I have to pay taxes on the income, and the merchant company, like whoever I use, is going to report it to the IRS and send me a 1099-K. So that's incorrect. You should not be liquidating your credit cards by sending yourself an invoice and paying it with a credit card. That's fraud, and it will catch up to you. So I'll talk about that, and I'll be talking about other different topics that we'll talk about. Okay, so I say good night to everyone. Thank you for tuning in. May you have a blessed night and have a happy holidays to those who had Thanksgiving on Thursday and still celebrating it to this day. Many of you are out of town. Many of you are with your families and friends and relatives having a good time, and then you'll resume back to normal. Some of you get home tomorrow, go back to work on Monday, or go back to your business. But I say blessings to everyone. And like I'll leave with the saying of the late great Reverend Knight will always say, I wish you health, happiness, prosperity, success, love, money, and the abundance of all things. Good night.